If you've ever been sitting in your living room at night and heard a strange popping sound coming from your water heater closet, you know exactly how unsettling that can be. Some folks think it's the house settling, some think it's a mouse in the walls, and a lot of folks just turn the TV up a little louder and try to ignore it, hoping it goes away on its own.
Here's the truth. That popping noise is not random, and it's definitely not nothing. It's your water heater trying to tell you something, and in a lot of homes,
It's been trying to say the same thing for months, sometimes years before anybody actually listens. I've walked into hundreds of basements and utility closets over the years where homeowners told me the exact same thing. It's been doing that for a while now, but it still makes hot water, so I figured it was fine. And I understand that thinking. But by the time that popping gets loud enough to notice from another room, there's usually a lot going on inside that tank that you can't see. Today, I want to walk you through exactly what's causing that sound, why it happens, what it means for the health of your water heater, and what you can do about it, whether you want to handle it yourself or just want to know what to ask for when you call somebody.
My name is Mike Anderson. I'm a third-generation American master plumber, and I've spent the last 45 years repairing, inspecting,
And maintaining thousands of residential plumbing systems in homes all across the United States. My grandfather taught my father taught me, and between the three of us, this family's been under American kitchen sinks and behind American water heaters since before a lot of the tools I use today were even invented. Over those 45 years, I've seen just about everything a water heater can do. I've seen them run quiet and steady for 20 years without a single issue, and I've seen brand new units, not even 2 years old, start popping and rumbling because of one small thing nobody bothered to explain to the homeowner when it was installed. Most plumbing issues aren't caused by some expensive, catastrophic failure. In my experience, they're caused by small, ordinary things that build up slowly over time, things almost every homeowner deals with at some point, whether they know it or not. Today, I'm going to show you the same explanation and the same steps I give my own family and my neighbors when they ask me about this exact noise. So let's talk about what's actually happening inside that tank. Your water heater, whether it's gas or electric, has a heating element or burner at the bottom of the tank, and that tank is constantly filling with water from your home's supply line. Now here's the part most people never think about. The water coming into your home isn't pure water. It's carrying dissolved minerals with it, mainly calcium and magnesium, and depending on where you live, sometimes quite a lot of it. I'd say about 7 out of 10 homes I visit have what we call hard water to some degree, and every single time that water gets heated, some of those minerals separate out of the water and settle down at the bottom of the tank as sediment. Over time, that sediment doesn't just sit there quietly. It builds up, layer by layer, into a crusty, almost concrete-like buildup at the base of your tank. Now, here's where the popping comes in. As that sediment layer thickens, water starts getting trapped underneath it and in the little pockets throughout that mineral buildup. When your burner or heating element fires up, it has to heat right through that layer of sediment to reach the water. The water trapped inside those pockets turns to steam almost instantly because it's sitting directly against the heat source, and that steam pushes up through the sediment layer trying to escape. That rapid steam release, that's your popping, cracking, or rumbling sound. It's essentially tiny little steam explosions happening at the bottom of your tank over and over every time the burner cycles on. The thicker that sediment gets, the more dramatic that sound becomes. In the early stages, you might just hear a faint tapping. Give it enough time, sometimes a couple of years, depending on your water hardness and how often the tank runs, and that faint tapping can turn into a noise that sounds almost like popcorn popping in a microwave, or in some of the worst cases I've seen, something closer to gravel being shaken around in a metal can. Now, I want to talk about the mistakes I see most often, because I promise you, these aren't unusual. These are things almost every homeowner does at some point. The first mistake is simply ignoring the sound because the hot water still works. I understand that logic, but the popping isn't just an annoying noise. That sediment layer is acting like a blanket between your burner and the water above it. It's making your water heater work harder and longer to heat the same amount of water, which means higher energy bills. And it's putting extra stress on the tank itself. The second mistake I see all the time is homeowners assuming the noise means the water heater is about to explode or fail immediately. I want to ease your mind on that one. In the vast majority of cases, this is a gradual maintenance issue, not an emergency. It's not something that typically causes sudden failure, but it is something that shortens the lifespan of your unit and reduces its efficiency the longer it goes unaddressed. The third mistake, and this one costs people real money, is calling for a full water heater replacement the moment they hear unusual noises, when in many cases what's actually needed is a straightforward tank flush. I can't tell you how many times I've walked into a home where the owner was ready to replace the entire unit, a purchase that can run well over $1,000, only to find out the fix was a flush that took me under an hour. And the fourth mistake, probably the most common one of all, is simply never having flushed the tank since it was installed. A lot of folks don't even know that's something you're supposed to do. Nobody explained it to them at installation, and water heaters don't exactly come with a big warning label reminding you every 6 months.
Let's break down the science here in plain terms, because understanding why this happens makes the fix make a lot more sense. Water itself is a great solvent, meaning it naturally dissolves small amounts of minerals as it travels through the ground and through pipes on its way to your home. Calcium and magnesium are the two big ones we deal with in residential plumbing. When water's cold, those minerals mostly stay dissolved and you don't notice them. But heat changes water's ability to hold onto those minerals in solution. As water heats up, its capacity to keep calcium and magnesium dissolved drops, and those minerals begin to precipitate out, meaning they separate from the water and turn into solid particles. Those solid particles are heavier than water, so they sink. And since your heating element or burner is at the bottom of the tank, that's exactly where those particles settle and start to accumulate, right on top of the heat source itself. Over months and years, layer builds on layer, and what starts as a fine, sandy grit can eventually harden into a dense, compacted layer. This is the same basic process, by the way, that causes white, chalky buildup on your faucets and shower heads in hard water areas. It's the same minerals, just settling in your water heater instead of on your fixtures. The reason this matters isn't just the noise. That sediment layer acts as an insulator between the flame or element and the water. Your water heater's whole job is to transfer heat efficiently into the water above it. When there's a crusty mineral barrier in the way, the unit has to burn longer and hotter to get the same results, which means more wear on the components, more fuel or electricity used, and in gas units specifically, sometimes even overheating of the tank bottom itself, which over years can lead to premature tank failure. Now, here's something almost nobody tells you, and it took me years on the job to figure this out myself. A lot of homeowners think that popping noise means their water heater is old and failing, but I've actually serviced water heaters less than 2 years with this exact same problem, sometimes worse than tanks twice their age. Age isn't really the deciding factor here, it's water hardness and maintenance frequency. I've seen a brand new tank in a hard water area develop noticeable sediment buildup in under 12 months, while an older tank in a soft water area, flushed regularly, can run for 15 or 20 years without ever making a peep. So don't judge this by the age of your unit. Judge it by whether or not it's ever actually been flushed. Reveal the professional solution. So what's the actual fix? The good news is, in most cases, this is something you can handle yourself with basic tools, and it doesn't require replacing anything. What you're doing is performing what's called a tank flush, essentially draining the tank completely to remove that loose and settled sediment from the bottom. Now, I do want to be upfront with you. If your tank has never been flushed in several years, the sediment can sometimes be compacted enough that a standard flush only partially clears it, and in those specific cases, you may need a plumber to do a more thorough cleaning, or in rare situations, discuss whether the tank's remaining lifespan makes a flush worthwhile at all. But for most homeowners catching this at the popping noise stage, a proper flush usually makes a real noticeable difference. The other piece of this puzzle is prevention. Once you've flushed the tank, doing this on a regular schedule going forward is what keeps that sediment from building back up to problem levels again. Let me walk you through exactly how I do this in my own home, step by step. What you'll need is a garden hose, a bucket for the first bit of water, work gloves, and if your water heater is gas, you'll also want to know where the gas control valve is located. First, for safety, if you have a gas water heater, turn the gas control valve to the pilot setting or off depending on your model, so the burner won't fire while you're working.
If you have an electric water heater, go to your breaker panel and switch off the breaker dedicated to the water heater. This step matters because you never want the heating element or burner running with the tank empty or partially empty, since that can damage the unit. Second, turn off the cold water supply valve that feeds into the top of the water heater. This is usually located right on the pipe entering the tank. Third, connect your garden hose to the drain valve near the bottom of the tank and run the other end of that hose to a floor drain, a driveway, or somewhere the hot water can safely drain away. Keep in mind, this water will be hot, so keep the hose away from grass, delicate plants, or anything that could be damaged by heat, and keep children and pets away from the discharge area during this process. Fourth, open a hot water faucet somewhere in your house, like an upstairs bathroom sink. This breaks the vacuum in the system and helps the tank drain properly. Fifth, open the drain valve on the water heater and let the tank empty completely. Depending on your tank size, this usually takes somewhere around 15 to 20 minutes. You'll likely notice the water coming out looks cloudy or has small grainy particles in it, especially toward the end. That's the sediment we've been talking about. Sixth, once it's fully drained, here's a trick I use that most people skip. With the drain valves still open, briefly turn the cold water supply back on for 30 to 60 seconds. This sends a burst of water through the tank that helps stir up and flush out any remaining sediment sitting at the very bottom, rather than just letting gravity do all the work. Seventh, close the drain valve, remove your hose, and close the hot water faucet you opened earlier. Eighth, turn the cold water supply valve back on fully and let the tank refill completely. You'll know it's full once water flows steadily without sputtering from the hot water faucet you opened in step 4. Ninth, and this is an important safety step, once the tank is completely full of water, only then should you restore power, either by turning the gas control valve back to on and relighting the pilot according to your manufacturer's instructions, or by switching the electric breaker back on. Running the heating element or burner with an empty tank, even briefly, can cause serious damage, so this order of operations matters. Once everything is back on, give it some time to reheat, usually 30 minutes to an hour depending on your tank size, and listen. In many cases, you'll notice that popping sound is significantly reduced or gone entirely.
A few things I've picked up over the years that make this process smoother. If your drain valve is one of the cheap plastic ones that came standard on a lot of tanks and it won't fully close afterward or starts dripping, that's actually pretty common on older units. A brass replacement valve costs less than $10 and is a simple swap that solves that problem permanently. If your water comes out extremely cloudy or you can hear a lot of grinding or rattling as it drains, that tells me the sediment has built up more heavily than average, and I'd recommend doing this flush 2 or 3 times in a row, letting it fully refill between each one, rather than expecting a single flush to clear years of buildup all at once. One thing I've learned over 4 decades is that if you're on a private well or you know your home has particularly hard water, you'll want to flush more frequently than a home on city water with naturally softer supply. I always ask homeowners if they know their water hardness, because that one detail tells me almost everything about how often they should be doing this. And if you ever notice after flushing that the popping continues at the same intensity, that's often a sign the sediment has hardened significantly, and a professional descaling or tank inspection might be worth scheduling, just to rule out any other underlying issues with the tank itself. Mistakes to avoid. A few mistakes to steer clear of here. Never skip turning off the power or gas before draining. An empty tank with an active heat source can damage the tank or the heating element very quickly. Never let the hot draining water run across grass, decking, or anything heat sensitive. And never assume that because the water looks clear after 5 minutes that all the sediment is out. It's worth letting it run the full recommended time. Also, avoid using extremely high water pressure to try to blast the sediment out faster. It's not necessary, and in some older tanks, sudden pressure changes aren't ideal for the fittings. Safety reminders. A quick word on safety, because I always want you to feel confident doing this, not nervous. Wear work gloves, since the tank and drain valve get hot. Make sure ventilation is decent in the area, especially with gas units.
Keep children and pets well away from the hot draining water, and always double-check your specific manufacturer's instructions for relighting a gas pilot, since the process can vary slightly between brands. Going forward, here's what I recommend. If you're on city water with average hardness, flushing your tank once a year is usually a solid schedule to prevent significant sediment buildup. If you're on well water or you know you have hard water, I'd bump that up to every 6 months. Marking it on a calendar or setting a reminder around the same time each year, like when you change your furnace filter or check your smoke detectors, is a simple way to make sure it doesn't slip your mind. This one simple habit is honestly one of the most overlooked pieces of home maintenance I come across, and it's also one of the cheapest and easiest to actually do yourself. So to bring it all together, that popping noise coming from your water heater is sediment, mineral deposits from your water supply, building up at the bottom of the tank and trapping small pockets of water that turn to steam and escape with that popping or rumbling sound you're hearing. It's not usually an emergency, but it is a sign that your tank needs some attention, and in most cases, a proper flush, done safely and in the right order, clears it up and gets your water heater running quieter and more efficiently again. With regular maintenance, usually once a year or twice a year if you have hard water, you can usually keep that sediment from building back up to a problem level in the future. If you found today's tips helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. Every week, I share practical home maintenance advice I've learned over 45 years as a professional plumber, so you can avoid costly repairs, understand what's actually happening inside your home systems, and keep your house running safely and efficiently for years to come. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me today, and I'll see you in the next one.